Greenland Sea, 3:07 p.m. Low sun, cold glare.
The kind of light that looks clean, then cuts. Steel gray water, no waves, just breath. A thin skin of mist hugging the surface like the ocean is trying not to be seen. Viking rides that line north. Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. Gray paint that matches the sky. Low profile. Quiet posture. Not meant to be noticed. Not meant to be filmed. On deck, ice crystals cling to rails. On the bridge, screens glow pale blue. Voices stay low. Even footsteps sound softer in cold air. The ship is doing what destroyers do in the far north. Presence without theater, motion without noise. A moving reminder that the corridor is watched, and that the corridor is never empty. The corridor is a seam between the North Atlantic and the high Arctic. A seam submarines cross, a seam satellites stare through, a seam where one mistake becomes a headline. Viking has no escorts in sight, no photo op formation, just a ship and a horizon, but the horizon is lying, because up here distance is a trick. One cloud bank can hide a fleet, one patch of fog can hide a decision, and at 3:07 the decision appears. A shadow, not a blip. A hull, a Chinese gray shape sliding into the same lane, matching speed, matching angle, close enough to film the wake, close enough to sell the moment. A provocation prepared for broadcast. A win built for screens in Beijing. A clip designed to say, "We pushed an American warship, and it moved." The air on the bridge shifts before anyone speaks. Because everyone knows what shadowing means when it stops being distant. It means pressure. It means physics. It means someone testing how close they can get before steel touches steel. Someone gambling that the United States will blink first. The Chinese ship doesn't announce itself. It doesn't call. It just closes. Slow at first, then steady, then intentional. A radar warning tone begins. Soft and polite, like an alarm trying not to offend. Then another tone, a different pitch, a different band. The combat system is mapping the situation in quiet, in numbers, in vectors. Contact, bearing 048. Range closing. The plot tightens. The shadow isn't trailing anymore. It's slicing. It wants to be seen. It wants a camera angle. It wants a moment it can edit. And 33 minutes later, Beijing is shocked because they make 4 miscalculations. First, they think Viking is alone. It isn't. Not up here. Not on this corridor. The Arctic is not empty. It's layered. Sensors on seabed, ears in the water, eyes in the sky. Second, they think the Arctic is blind. It's not. It's a glass ceiling. Even when you can't see, someone else can. Even when you think you're hidden, you're outlined by heat and wake and shadow on satellite. Third, they think shadowing is legal theater, a gray zone dance, safe, until it becomes contact, until it becomes sabotage, until it becomes violence without a gunshot. Fourth, they think Washington needs hours, paperwork, debate, delay. They think commanders argue while the moment passes, but the Arctic runs on pre-approval, standing orders, NATO muscle memory, a checklist that's already signed, and tonight the stopwatch starts fast. Because the thing Viking carries isn't cargo, it's not humanitarian pallets, it's not a celebrity, it's quieter, a sealed module deep inside the ship, a classified element that changes the stakes, a hard drive of undersea mapping data, a record of what moved through this corridor in the last 72 hours. It is the kind of information that doesn't look like power until a submarine needs it, until a missile needs it, until a nation needs it. And China wants a glimpse, a leak, a photo, a sound. They want propaganda, yes, but they also want a puzzle piece. That's why they're close. That's why they're filming the stern. That's why the drones come next. Greenland is the hinge, a giant rock with a keyhole on top, a capstone over roots that connect continents. One number matters. Less than 1,000 miles from Greenland's far north to strategic nodes that watch everything. Radar arcs, satellite downlinks, airfields that launch patrol aircraft. The corridor isn't just water, it's an artery, and arteries attract pressure. Shipping routes creep north each year. Ice recedes, opportunity grows, and with opportunity comes competition, not with flags, with shadows, with research ships, with gray hulls that call themselves routine. The line here is thin. The line is not political rhetoric, it's mechanical. It's the distance between two ships at speed, it's the angle of approach. It's what a small boat throws into the water. It's whether a drone dips too low. And at 3:07 p.m., the line is about to be crossed. 3:07 p.m. Bridge lights dim. Red night glow even in daytime because screens matter more than windows now. The radar warning tone pulses again. A soft, steady beep. Somewhere below, ventilation fans hum. A coffee cup trembles slightly with the ship's vibration. Contact, bearing 048. Range decreasing. The officer of the deck watches the plot. The track line bends. The Chinese ship is not holding separation. It is closing the lane. Viking holds course. Professional, cold, no panic. The destroyer doesn't turn away from shadows. It logs them. It records them. It makes them accountable. Maintain course. Record everything. A klaxon chirps once, sharp, a tiny metal yelp. Not for the crew, for the moment. 3:08 p.m. A small dot appears on a separate display. Low altitude, fast. Drone airborne. Tracking. The drone is low enough to feel aggressive without being armed. It skims like a thrown knife, the kind of thing that looks like a toy until it's over your deck. It circles the stern. Too close. It wants the wake pattern. It wants the signature. It wants to see if Viking is towing anything. It wants the towed array, the ship's long underwater ear. The thing that listens for submarines. The thing you never want photographed. A second drone follows. Lower. Closer. One dips and climbs like it's testing the ship's nerves. On deck, sailors tilt their heads up, eyes squinting into glare. On the bridge, no one looks up. They stare at screens. Because the screens show intent. 3:09 p.m. The Chinese ship shifts its bow a few degrees. The move is subtle, but the effect is loud. The water between the hulls tightens. Pressure changes. The whisper of collision risk becomes a presence. You can hear the slap of water against steel. Not waves, force. A deliberate squeeze. Viking answers with discipline. It keeps the lane. It refuses to give them a dramatic evasive turn. It refuses to give them the clip they want. A signal light flickers. Short, sharp. Then radio. Calm, cold. Chinese naval vessel. This is United States warship. You are operating dangerously close. Alter course immediately. The words are clean. No insult, no threat, just a record, a timestamp, a future exhibit. No response, just closing speed. 3:10 p.m. The shadow crosses the bow at an unsafe distance. A gray wall gliding across Viking's forward view. A message without words. We can cut in front of you whenever we want. A drone buzzes across the bridge windows, too close for comfort, the sound like a hornet trapped in glass. The helmsman's hands stay steady. Steady on course. Steady. The combat system marks the pass. The log writes it down. 3:11 p.m. The drone makes a tighter circle. It's hunting for something. The stern wake, the cable line, the towed array. Viking runs quiet, but nothing is invisible forever. 3:12 p.m. A metallic snap in the water, a sudden tug, not felt by the whole ship, just by the sensors. An aft system spikes. A tension line changes. On a display, a warning pops. Possible interference with towed array. Possible snag attempt. No, that's not theater. That's sabotage, because you don't accidentally put metal near a towed system at speed. You do it because you want the ship slowed. You want it vulnerable. You want a helpless animal in cold water. A destroyer at slow speed here is a dead machine. Ice wind, limited maneuver, unpredictable drift. The bridge turns quiet in a new way. Not fear, calculation. Viking makes a small helm correction, just enough to protect the gear, just enough to keep the array safe, just enough to deny them a collision clip. The Chinese drones dip again. One dives toward the stern like a stone. Warning shot authorized? A beat, a breath. Not yet, because warning shots become headlines too. 3:13 p.m. The Chinese ship swings tighter again. Its bow wave pushes into Viking's wake. The two wakes fight. Foam lines twist like ropes. The drone's camera flashes in the sun. You can almost imagine the edit already. Dramatic music, a narrator, acclaim, the words humiliation and retreat. 3:14 p.m. A small boat drops from the shadow ship. Gray on gray. Hard to see until it hits the water and starts bouncing. A rigid hull inflatable, fast and reckless, heading straight for Viking's wake. Now the air changes on every face. Small craft approaching. Intent unknown. Distance dropping. Viking sounds its horn. A short blast. A command. The small boat does not turn. Radio again. Louder. Colder. Turn away. Immediately. No answer. The small craft is not here to salute. It's here to touch something, to throw something, to foul something. 3:15 p.m. The boat hits the edge of the wake, jumps, slaps down. Spray breaks like shattered glass. Two figures on it, bundled, faces hidden. One crouches, one stands, one arm swings. 3:16 p.m. Something arcs into the water, a line, a weighted cable, a hook. It lands with a dark splash, then disappears under foam, then resurfaces, taut. It is aimed at Viking's gear, a fouling attempt. A mission to cripple without firing. On the bridge, line in the water, attempting to foul screws or array. This is the red line, not diplomatic, mechanical, lethal if it works, because fouling can mean loss of propulsion, loss of steering, and in Arctic water, loss of control is not an inconvenience. It is a countdown. Hypothermia, hull stress, drift toward ice, drift toward danger. The captain's voice is flat, no drama. ROE threshold met. Non-lethal disable authorized. The order lands like a door closing. Disable the craft. A remote weapon station whirs. A small motor sound, then silence. The gun tracks. A calm, mechanical eye following a bouncing boat. Two sharp cracks, precise, not huge, not cinematic thunder, just the sound of control. The small craft shatters. Spray erupts. A brief flash. The cable goes slack. The boat spins, dead in the water, drifting into the wake foam like debris. 3:17 p.m. The Chinese shadow ship surges forward, angry now. Close enough to see crew shapes on deck. Helmets, silhouettes, someone pointing, someone filming, and then the biggest mistake. The shadow ship turns in hard, a ramming angle, not subtle, not gray zone. It is geometry that ends in steel. Collision course. Hard right, Viking responds instantly. Helm over. Engines bite. The destroyer's turbines rise in pitch. The hull leans. Steel moves like instinct. The Chinese hull misses by a few yards, close enough for everyone to feel it in their teeth. A wake crash, a violent slap of water. Foam slams against Viking's side. The ship shudders once, not from impact, from proximity. Now Viking transmits the emergency burst, short, encrypted. A beacon that says one thing, hostile act. Not harassment, not unsafe seamanship. Hostile act, 3:18 p.m. The bridge goes into a different mode. Not panic, precision. Mark it, transmit, keep recording. Below decks, the ship's systems shift. Doors seal. Damage control teams stand by. Not because they are hit, because they might be. A radar warning tone changes cadence. Faster. The combat system is watching for missiles that aren't there yet, watching for guns that might open, watching for the next move that crosses from provocation to war. 3:19 p.m. The first responder is not a ship, it's a sound, rotor chop. Distant. Faint at first, like someone tearing paper far away. Then louder, coming fast. Through gray sky, a NATO helicopter drops low. Danish colors on its fuselage. Snow camo patterns that belong in this latitude. It stays beneath the cloud base, using weather as cover. On radio, Viking, this is Alley Angel. We have eyes, we record, we support. The words are simple, but they are everything. Because now the shadow knows it is seen, not by one ship, by an alliance. 3:20 p.m. Another sound arrives, higher, cleaner. A jet somewhere above the clouds, not visible yet. But you hear the speed, a thin, fast whine moving across the sky. 3:21 p.m. The Chinese drones pull back a little, then come in again like they can't decide whether to run or capture the clip. One drone makes a last low pass at the stern, like a thief reaching for a pocket. Viking doesn't flinch. Its electronic warfare system speaks, not with words, with noise. A harsh burst into the spectrum, a short, ugly scream that makes the drone wobble. The drone loses stability. It dips. It fights itself. Then it drops into the sea and vanishes. 3:22 p.m. A P-8A patrol aircraft checks in. Cold voice. No emotion. Viking, P-8 overhead. We have full picture. Chinese vessel tagged. Drones tagged. Small craft disabled, confirmed. On a screen in the P-8, the entire scene is a diagram. Heat signatures, wake lines, radio emissions. On Viking, it feels like a net tightening. The Chinese shadow ship is still close, but now it is surrounded by invisible geometry. Tracks, beams, eyes. 3:23 p.m. The Chinese ship tries to regain control of the narrative. It flashes signal lights. It broadcasts something in a burst. It wants to claim innocence while still pressing, but it's too late. The hostile act beacon is already in the system. The timestamps are already in the network. 3:24 p.m. The shadow ship attempts to flee north. Hard throttle, white wake widening like a wound behind it. But the P-8 calls it instantly. They are accelerating. We are marking track. They are not escaping. Viking follows, not chasing, herding. It maintains separation. It keeps the angle. It denies the shadow and escape corridor. Because phase 1 is simple. Deny the objective, survive, keep control. The objective was to touch the machine, to foul it, to slow it, to force a headline clip. That objective is dead. The small craft is dead in the water. The drone is gone. The ramming failed. Phase 1 is complete. 3:25 p.m. A new tone on the bridge. A different warning. A sonar tech reports in. New transient, possible splash. Not a weapon splash, something else, something dropped, a pod, a sensor, a small object that can listen, that can record, that can sit on seabed and wait. It is the kind of move that looks harmless until months later when someone knows too much. The captain's jaw tightens, because now the provocation has a second layer, not just propaganda, not just harassment, collection, undersea collection. 3:26 p.m. Far away in a command center, screens replay the moment. The cable in the water, the attempted foul, the ramming angle, the drone passes, the dropped object, the hostile act beacon. A nameplate above the room reads, U.S. Second Fleet. The commander watches once, then twice. One sentence lands like a hammer. This wasn't harassment. This was an attempted seizure by physics. Another voice, lower, clinical. They tried to disable a U.S. warship in Arctic waters. They tried to create a capture condition. Silence. Then the follow-on decision. Authorize follow-on, remove capability, now. Permission is granted, not for anger, for deterrence. Phase 2 begins. 3:27 p.m. The Chinese shadow ship doesn't know yet. It is still running north, wake foaming, trying to put distance between itself and evidence. It thinks speed is safety. It thinks weather is cover. It thinks it can cross a line and then vanish into the gray. It forgets the Arctic is layered. It forgets the net. The sea around it changes in a way you don't see at first. A synchronized salvo doesn't have to start with fire. Sometimes it starts with silence. From beyond the horizon, unseen, a U.S. submarine moves into position. A hidden advantage revealed only when it matters. To the west, a Danish frigate closes fast, hull cutting clean, disciplined, radar quiet until it wants to be loud. Above, the P-8 becomes a judge, calling every step, marking every emission, translating every move into a track that can't be denied later. 3:28 p.m. The first strike layer is standoff, not a missile storm, a surgical cut. Viking's vertical launch cells don't need drama. They don't need a countdown shouted on deck. They open, briefly, like teeth. 2 weapons leave in quick sequence, low and fast, sea skimming out of sight. They are not aimed at people. They are aimed at capability. Target 1, the shadow ship's primary radar array. Target 2, its drone control module. The P-8 watches the weapons close. It calls the impacts like a referee. 3:29 p.m. Impact. Clean. A bright snap on the mast. A sudden bloom of smoke. A shower of fragments that glitter for a second then disappear into gray. The Chinese ship goes half blind, not sunk, not burning to the waterline, but wounded where it sees. Its radar picture collapses. Its track quality degrades. Its ability to coordinate drones and small craft is cut. Radio from the P-8. Radar degraded. Data link unstable. They are losing control. 3:30 p.m. The second layer arrives. Seed and jamming. The air becomes hostile to electronics. NATO electronic support floods the band. A wall of noise. Not audible, but felt in systems. The remaining drone feed collapses. The shadow ship's comms stutter. Antennas flash with static. A crew that can't hear its own commanders is a crew trapped in fog. On the bridge of the Chinese ship, someone slams a handset down. Someone points at a dead screen. Someone realizes the clip they wanted is now evidence against them. 3:31 p.m. A precision hit follows. Target 3, comm center. Not the whole ship, just the nerve. A small strike, a bright crack, then darkness across antennas. The ship can still float, but it can't speak clearly. It can't coordinate. It can't spin the story in real time. 3:32 p.m. The third layer targets propulsion control. Viking fires again. Not many. Not. Just enough. Target 4, steering control compartment. Target 5, engine room access area. The hits are hard flashes, deep thuds, not fireworks, structural punches. The white wake narrows, then dies. The shadow ship begins to drift, a wounded machine sliding sideways in cold water. The Danish frigate arrives within range, guns trained, but held. Because the real punishment isn't a gun duel, it's the removal of options. 3:33 p.m. The NATO helicopter drops lower. Rotor chop shakes the air. Its camera sees everything. The Chinese vessel tries a last trick. A flare arcs up. A smoke screen blooms, black and thick, meant to hide. But smoke doesn't hide heat. The P-8 speaks, calm as ice. Thermal shows secondary explosions. Fuel line breach, likely. They are dead in the water. Then the scene gets worse for Beijing, because a second Chinese support vessel appears on the edge. A research ship, a helper, a cover story, a ship that was never supposed to be this close. It turns away immediately, like it wants to pretend it was never here, but it is already logged, already filmed, already identified. Viking turns sensors on it, a quiet lock. The submarine, still unseen, shifts position to cut the exit. The Danish frigate angles to block. The P-8 marks the research ship's comm dome, its launch bays, its deck containers. The ship's hidden modules show up as hot rectangles on thermal. Not science, not fishing. Support. 3:34 p.m. The synchronized salvo moment lands. 2 different platforms, 2 different directions, 1 coordinated intent. A pair of precision strikes hits the support vessel. Target 6, the launch bay area. Target 7, the satellite uplink dome. The results are immediate. A bright flare on deck, then rolling fire. Black smoke, thick, unmistakable. The support vessel slows, then stops. Not sunk, but broken. The message is delivered without a speech. You don't bring a camera to a knife fight, not here. Not against a net. 3:35 p.m. Viking's bridge stays cold. No cheering, no celebration, just confirmation. Targets assessed. Threat removed. Maintain overwatch. On deck, the wind keeps cutting. Ice keeps forming. The environment does not care who won. 3:36 p.m. The P-8 circles once more, collecting proof. The Danish helicopter hovers long enough to capture the drifting hull, the broken mast, the smoke smear. The submarine, silent, maintains a position that nobody can photograph, but everyone can feel. 3:37 p.m. The Chinese shadow ship attempts a restart. You can see it in the wake. A brief churn, then nothing. A dead ship is an argument. A drifting ship is a confession. 3:38 p.m. Viking shifts slightly, positioning to avoid the drifting debris field. It keeps separation. It keeps discipline. It keeps the corridor safe for itself and for everyone watching. 3:39 p.m. The sea is littered with fragments. A destroyed small craft. A drone gone. A drifting shadow ship. A burning support vessel. The Arctic goes quiet again like it never happened. But it did. And Beijing feels it. 3:40 p.m. The stopwatch stops. Start time, 3:07 p.m. End time, 3:40 p.m. Total time, 33 minutes. Munitions used, under a dozen precision shots. Targets neutralized, 7 critical systems and modules. Enemy casualties unknown, but capability loss undeniable. U.S. and Allied losses, 0 ships lost, 0 aircraft lost. Minimal damage, a scoreboard, a lesson, and the lesson is written in what failed for China. The drones failed, the foul attempt failed, the ram failed, the escape failed, the propaganda clip died in the sea. Within hours, Chinese state media speaks first. It always does. They call it routine navigation. They call it U.S. aggression. They show selective clips, a drone pass, a horn blast, a dramatic title. They blur the moment the cable hits the water. They cut away before the small craft shatters. They never show the ramming angle. They never show the smoke. They never show the drifting hull. But the Arctic has a problem for propaganda. Satellites, commercial, clear, unemotional. Open source imagery appears fast, a high-altitude photo with a black smear on cold water, another image that shows a broken mast, another that shows 2 ships dead in the water, smoke rising like a signal flare that can't be denied. The reality leaks through, not with speeches, with pixels. Then the official statement arrives, dry, short, no poetry, no boasting. We acted in collective self-defense. We eliminated the threat to safe navigation, a sentence that ends the argument. After this, the corridor tightens. Not geographically, politically. Shadowing becomes riskier, close passes become expensive, drones feel less like toys and more like liabilities, small boats feel less like theater and more like evidence. NATO observers take notes. So do countries that live in the cold north, because they understand the real change. In the Arctic, escalation is fast, and the sensor net is faster. Deterrence shifts, not by speeches, by timestamps. What changes is the cost of touching the machine. The message isn't don't come, it's simpler. Don't foul the ship, don't bet on delay. Don't assume gray weather means gray rules. Greenland Sea, 3:07 p.m. A shadow approaches. 33 minutes later, Beijing is shocked. Never mistake shadowing for control. Never confuse cameras with power. Never assume the Arctic is empty. 33 minutes, total destruction.